Lift Events and Experiences, known for Canada's #1 cannabis conference and trade shows, is hosting a full slate of events in 2023 and expanding to the U.S., and you're invited. Lift welcomes everyone from legacy participants to multi-state operators to everyday folks who enjoy and respect the plant. Join us in lifting the cannabis community together January 12th through the 14th in Vancouver, then Toronto in June, and San Francisco in August. Visit liftevents.com for details. That's liftevents.com.
They need to understand what this simple plant can do, and to tell parents not to take a plant oil, a plant like broccoli. Don't eat broccoli because it might affect the poison, the chemotherapy that we're coursing through your child's veins, or the radiation that we're shooting through their veins or through their body.
Welcome to the Miracle Plant Podcast, the show that inspires, promotes, and gives you a daily dose of inspiration from the people who have used cannabis to change their lives in extraordinary ways. Here's your host, Justin Benton.
Welcome back to the Miracle Plant Podcast, where we discuss this miracle plant with so many names and how it's helping people in so many extraordinary ways. Today we are taking a tangent. We are taking a left turn, which we've taken a lot of lefts and a lot of rights here on the Miracle Plant Podcast, because that's the journey that we're on. You know, as we all know, in March of 2020, that we all had to take a left, or, you know, we were sitting dead red on a fastball, and wouldn't you know, there's a 12-6 curveball coming right over, starting out at our chin and going across the plate. And that was March of 2020, and we had to, you know, pivot or transition or be flexible or adaptable to what we were doing, what our mission was, which is to reach 1 billion people by 2025, about the power of this miracle plant in the raw form to pay it forward. Today, we're going to talk about things that we don't usually talk about here on the Miracle Plant Podcast. You know, we got Dan here, Humistondiscuss, who's joining us, and co-host, and he and I were talking a little bit before we went live about, you know, we're positive, upbeat people. We like to motivate, inspire, and we're on missions. And, you know, we're on the same mission, obviously, to talk about this plant and talk about how it's helped so many other peoples and how it can continue to help, you know, millions and millions and more people. You know, but today we're going to talk about, you know, some of the tough things that happen as entrepreneurs that you know, maybe I would shield them because I don't want... I don't know. There is a lot of hard stuff that goes on with being any type of entrepreneur, but especially in the hemp and the cannabis space, there are some unique challenges. And I guess I've really been studying, and it's been coming across my plate about being more open or more vulnerable. And I wanted to share maybe some more of those insights that might help you on your journey, or help you want to come along with us on our journey as we reach 1 billion people by 2025 about this miracle plant. So, you know, first and foremost, the thing that comes to mind for me is, and first I wanted to welcome you, Dan, to the show. So how are you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing great. A little bit nervous about where we're going on this one.
You and me both, man. We'll see where it takes us. So, but the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, and I've kidded about writing a book about this, and I know I could if I made the time and I thought it was the right way to use my time, is that in the hemp, you know, industry, we've had some pretty major challenges. You know, obviously the miracle was that we found the raw whole plant, essentially juicing the plant, is what was allowing my son's brain to heal from the severe diagnosis he got later on when he was around 3 years old. And, you know, it was so amazing, if you've heard our story before, how we saw other people using it for complicated autoimmune diseases with tremendous success, is what they told us, and we saw with our own eyes. And so that's when we decided to start the .org, of many names, and that's part of the challenge. Look, I'm out here in California, and there is this beer called 805, which was actually a rebranded Firestone beer. But they on it, and they called it 805, and it got popular. And so with that kind of as my inspiration, 805 is the area code out here in Ventura County. And so with that kind of inspiration, when I was trying to think of a real simple name that people would understand, because remember, all I was trying to do was put up a little sign on a store so people that heard our story could get access to the same products and the things that we did to help my son with autism. And so I said 101, like the 101 CBD, it's the 101. It's the highway out here. It runs right up from Burbank all the way to Seattle. It's the West Coast, and that's all my ambition ever was to go meet every store on the 101, chiropractors and things like that, health food stores. And that's what I did. I would travel up and down the 101 talking with them. And so that's how the mission got started. Well, it was 101cbd.org because it was CBD, which, people could Google search and find us on their local SEO. Real simple. My wife, Molly, is an expert in local SEO and things like that. So that's just how we set it up. And then I went back to business. I've been in sales and marketing, helping companies and entrepreneurs with their marketing and sales for my entire life, going on, almost 30 years now, which is kind of crazy to say. I don't feel much older than 27. But anyways, so that's what happened. And the different name changes is part of the challenge of being in hemp. So then CBD got blacklisted and banned, and we had accounts shut down on Facebook accounts and Google accounts and YouTube accounts and Instagram accounts, and we'd start new accounts and those would get shut down and ads would get, I'm dealing with it right now today, like this morning, I'm dealing with that. And so we changed the name to 101 Hemp. And obviously we're not just CBD, it's the whole plant. There's 100 cannabinoids plus in every plant. And so hemp is really the plant. So that's what we actually went and got a trademark. And so getting a trademark is usually something that you can go to LegalZoom and you can get a trademark for like $800 It takes a few months. You got to jump through a couple hoops. Well, because it had hemp on it and the government's so paranoid about this miracle plant, and by so many names, that it took us over 18 months, many rejections. We had to say that it was just for a topical. We had to do all kinds of crazy stuff that no one else had to deal with just to get our own brand trademarked. Don't even get me started on the process that we've had to go through to get the extraction method and the patent and all those kinds of things. It's because the word hemp, which is totally legal as of 2018, in fact 2014 as well, made it super clean in the Farm Bill of 2018, that we've had to deal with just non-stop. Then they started, I think it was U.S. Bank or Bank of America. I always get those two confused. In fact, my wife had an account with one of them. I forget which one. And I walked into the other one time to deposit a check for her, I think. And they looked at me like real crazy. And I was like, what? I'm just dropping it off for my wife or whatever. And they're like, you're in the wrong place or something. I was like, hey, man, you guys' names are way too close. But anyways, I think it was U.S. Bank. And so U.S. Bank was the first company to take a stand. And this was actually before 2018, if memory serves me right. And they said that they would back hemp. And what was the name? Evalon, I think was the credit card company that was a part of that. And so all of us CBD companies, we were using a real bank to take our credit cards. And that was really the main only option that we had. And it was so exciting. And I'll never forget, I was at a Tony Robbins event. I think it was Unleash the Power Within in LA. And I got an email. I checked. I was on like cloud 9. You're pumped up at a Tony Robbins. You're like, just a real fun experience. You do a fire walk. I highly recommend it if you're looking for some positive mojo in your life. Anyways, I go on lunch break or something. I'm walking around. I check my email. Mistake. And basically I got an email saying that our merchant account was being shut down. And it wasn't just ours. It was all CBD companies. They were actually pulling the plug on the entire operation. And so it was definitely a shock to the system. And we didn't have any real backup merchant accounts. There was like these crazy high risk, high interest rate, just, cowboys out there that just nothing was real reputable. And so it took a few months for them to wind it down. Well, they got pressured, right? They got pressure from people in dark suits and in dark alleys they pressured the CEO of U.S. Bank to shut it down. Whether they got the lawyers involved or the politics involved, but they were pressured to shut it down because think about it. Again, anything they can do to slow down the progress of Americans we're talking about here. I mean, look at the Safe Banking Act, still hasn't passed. Anything they can do to slow down the progress of Americans waking up, taking the red pill of the Matrix, or if you're old like me, Alice in Wonderland, the red pill to wake up that the system is rigged against you when it comes to your health. I mean, we can talk about other things, but let's stay focused on health. We all know the side effects. In fact, I just saw this study that came out that, 41 million Americans of the water they tested so far are drinking pharmaceuticals. They cannot get the pharmaceuticals out of the water table. So it is literally in our water. We are drinking pharmaceuticals now because there's been so much that we have had taken. And so again, anything that Big Pharma can do to slow this train down. Now look, if you can't beat them, join them. They've got their patents in place. They're playing the game with the FDA and doing everything they can to keep us from just selling this product like we would at a farmer's market. In fact, as I live in Ventura, California, we have 2 or 3 farmers markets here in town. To this day, it is December 14th, I believe, 2022. And I cannot sell my CBD oil or topical or anything in a farmer's market in Ventura, California. They will kick. They have someone actually sold our CBD. They put it with raw honey, which is great. And they threatened. They made them take it off, and they said if anybody ever tries to sell any CBD in this farmer's market, they will kick them out of the farmer's market. And that's the. Here we are talking about a plant, folks, that, I could go a lot of directions with this right now, but we are talking about a plant that is proven to help children with seizures. Over and over and over again. I've seen it with my own eyes. We've all heard this. Well, most of us have heard the stories. I've seen it with dogs, adults, children. I've seen it. I've heard the stories. I've seen the tears. I've had the hugs. So even if that's all that this plant did, which modern Western medicine is completely bamboozled, they put them on all these horrible drugs that make them mood altering or lazy or gain weight or aggressive, all this garbage that they prescribe people, in my opinion. And here we are, that we have a plant that can help. Let's just say that's all that it did, was help children with epilepsy. And there is forces out there that sell a drug. GW Pharma sells a drug called Epidiolex, which sells annually for $32,500. And that's the whole insurance system. That's the whole healthcare system. And because it's made from an isolate with other fillers and garbage in there, it's only 39% effective. Whereas with you use the whole plant with all of the properties of the plant, all 512 plant constituents, the effectiveness is, definitely in the 90 percentile is what I have seen. In fact, I can't tell you an instance where I have not heard that it didn't work. No one's ever come to me and say it didn't help, whether it was reducing epilepsy seizures or whether it was just getting rid of them entirely. In fact, we had our guest on last week, and she was interesting that she was kind of, Stacy Shalemi, she was kind of on both sides of the fence, which I found interesting. I'm glad we had her on. But, even she didn't really understand. She thought that it didn't work for certain seizures or there needed to be more tests. Well, that's the Western medicine approach to things. Well, we need more research. And that's a talking point that Big Pharma has been pushing forever, especially to doctors and things like that. Which, research really, if you want to talk about research, this plant dates back 8,000 years. If you want, evidence that it's been dated back in Oriental medical journals, healing people, helping people for numerous conditions over 8,000 years. So, and here's the sad but true story. A friend of mine who's in a mastermind I'm with, we had talked earlier in the year in 2022, his daughter had brain cancer, had a tumor. And we had talked, and, I was like, hey, let me get you some. I'm going to send you some. And, when he talked to his doctor about it, after he heard my story with my son and his brain, he talked to his doctor about it, and his doctor said, let's hold off. Let's hold off on the CBD oil. We don't know, there's not enough research, let's try this first. Basically, stopping him in his tracks. And when you're talking about your 4-year-old daughter, and you don't know what to do, and you trust whatever the doctor says, that's what they did. And then he called me back about 2 or 3 months ago, and he said, hey, man, we're kind of in dire straits here, and, can you get me some of that CBD oil? Because when he talked to his doctor this time, the doctor said, well, we're kind of out of options here. This might be a good time to try CBD oil. And this was 2 or 3 months ago. So he calls me, and we rush some product over to him, send him like a bunch of products. We get on the phone with him and his wife, and we can hear his daughter in the background. And we do our best. We give the education. We talk about the product, how to take it, everything that we possibly can. But unfortunately, it was too late. And so she actually passed away a couple weeks ago. And her name was Clara. And again, that's, I feel for my friend and his wife and his family. And that's why it's so important that we keep coming on this podcast and we keep talking and we keep educating people, because they need to be educated. Doctors need to be educated. Doctors need to be trained about the endocannabinoid system that we've known about since the early 90s. They need to understand what this simple plant can do, and to tell parents not to take a plant oil, a plant like broccoli. Don't eat broccoli, because it might affect the poison, the chemotherapy that we're coursing through your child's veins, or the radiation that we're shooting through their veins or through their body. It's ridiculous. It's a tragedy that doctors have been, and I don't fault the doctors. I fault the system. It is rigged, folks. Do your own research. I always say that. Go do your own research. Get out there and dig and trust your instincts. Who do you think writes the questions on the medical exams? Who do you think writes the books? Who do you think trains our doctors these days? Who do you think? Who has the most to gain and who has the most to lose? I'll let you do your own research, because I've done mine. So again, we're talking about vulnerability, and this ride has not been smooth. It's not been easy. A lot of people ask me, how do you do it? How do you keep going? My estimation is about 80% of the CBD companies are gone, based on what I've seen. And I always tell people, whether it's in CBD or hemp or cannabis, it comes down to one word. It comes down to your why. It comes down to one question. How big is your why? And that's it. And that's advice for anybody in any walk of life of what you're doing. Look, as we've discussed here on today's episode, we only have so many days. The average American, or just human, has about 30,000 days. That's on average, about 75 years. And, actually I have some friends that have like calendars where they literally have like all 30,000 days. in a calendar, and they just have it all laid out, and they check the day off and what they did. And like for me, every day feels like a whole new life. Like I try to live every day like it's a life. Sometimes I feel like I've lived a lifetime in a day. Yesterday was one of those days. Just lots and lots going on, business and family, and staying as grateful as you possibly can, even when maybe some things don't go the way you had hoped, but just continuing to stay focused on what you have, not what you don't have. You get what you focus on. And so, again, just being vulnerable and open and talking about the ups and the downs of this journey. That's what today's episode's about. So I hope these insights of, maybe led you to learn something, or we have a shared value, because we need help. I mean, look, before March of 2020 happened, we had a very direct path to reaching 1 billion people and to having the type of impact that we need to have. So these doctors, so the mass media, so just people in general get a real good understanding about this plant. And look, we've got a lot of reprogramming that we have to do because of the reefer madness, because of the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, because of Nancy Reagan's Just Say No policy, to all the damage, some of the political, refugees and the political, prisoners that are still locked up, even though they've talked about, pardoning federal offenses and things like that over this plant. And it really is a tragedy in many different ways that it can, and we just have to continue to keep talking about it, keep showing these examples. And at some point, my hope and my goal is that when a family comes to a doctor, looking to this doctor for what to do with their loved ones, especially their children. And I know we've made some progress, but we've not made enough to when the doctor says, go for it. It isn't going to hurt anything. It's just a plant. You know what I mean? And maybe we're 5 years from that. Maybe we're 5 months from that. But that's part of my why. Because we are involved with these families. We get to see this happen, and cancer was basically the final thing that pushed me to go all in with the Miracle Plant podcast. 101 CBD was when Gudrun, the German lady, used our product to help heal herself on her own accord. She went through chemo, she went through radiation. She said, I'd rather die than do that again. And when she got a clean bill of health, just using our oil and eating right and exercising and just living a holistic life, that was the thing right then. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, first of all, it healed my son and helped my son heal with diet and raw hemp. But now it's getting rid of tumors. And then, like, go Google that. Like, even Big Pharma can't get rid of that. Maybe you have to go a couple pages past, some of the stuff they control, like WebMD. But keep scrolling down. Go to pubmed.gov. Type in CBD space tumors or cannabis space tumors. The research keeps coming out. And some of it's been around forever, decades. It's not even until I think like this year we just passed something. Biden signed something allowing us to research cannabis this year. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Look, what other plant is out there that we know scientifically proven shrinks tumors? I mean, straight up. There ain't no two ways about it. Just Google it, man. And I would go to PubMed.gov is the website, and go look at the research. Many other countries have found this, and like I said, we've actually been using this plant for thousands upon thousands of years for many, many different things. It is, some people kind of joke or kid, like, I keep seeing this word panacea. Oh, it can't be this, it can't be that. Well, it's the closest thing to a panacea I've ever seen. especially if you're in a bad situation.
I feel so bad for Claire's family. That's just devastating, and it's unfortunate that we even have to hear those stories anymore, because I'm not saying that it solves every problem, but it's one problem that could be, I don't know, it just seems like there's a lot of tools available that aren't being used. And what was doctor that we had on, we talked about just
William
taking
Courtney, Dr. William Courtney.
Yeah, Dr. Courtney just says, just take it out of your garden and put it in your salad. Just eat it. It's just like lettuce or broccoli or anything else. Just put it in there, and it's just, it's just one more. It's the nutrients and the benefits that you're getting from it. We don't know exactly how it works. I mean, we think we do, but if, like I said, it's one tool in the toolbox, and why it's not being used in every instance, because while they may be able to argue that there's no research that shows that there's benefit. I haven't seen any research that shows that there's any negative aspect of it. So, I mean, I would kind of use that as my reverse. Okay, well, there's no evidence to say that that it's damaging or it's going to be disruptive. So, if it's life or death, why not try everything? That's my opinion, and it just makes me sad when you hear stories of people. I love the stories of the success of people saying that, hey, I did this and I'm cancer free, or hey, I did this and my child doesn't have any more seizures, or my child is not on the spectrum anymore, or just all these great stories that we hear regularly in our podcasts. That's what I want to hear more of, but it's still sad because we still hear the stories. I got there too late. I didn't do it. I should have tried it. And it's like young people. It doesn't. It's just unfortunate that they're taken from us way too early, and that's why we do what we do, because we don't want to ever hear those stories again. And I think that the more people that hear what we're doing and what other people like us are doing, and help to spread the word, it's got to come up from the masses, and it's got to come from the root. We're the grassroots. We're the ones that are sharing this story, however way we can possibly do it. It's not easy to get to 1 billion people, Justin, but I mean, following your leadership, I think we're gonna get there. And I try to stay optimistic, and I always think that maybe there's this great story. I pulled it up while we were talking, because I just think this is so appropriate to what we're talking about. But there's this I don't know if you call it a proverb or a parable or whatever you call it, but it's about staying optimistic even when things get bumpy. And it's about this Chinese farmer who gets a horse, just wanders into his yard, and the people in this say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky, that horse! You're so lucky." And the farmer says, "I don't know if that's good news or bad news. Who can say?" And then the next day, the horse leaves, and the same people go, "Oh, too bad. That's bad news that the horse left." And the farmer says, "I don't know if it's good news or it's bad news. It just is." And the next day, the horse comes back with another horse. So now he's got 2 horses. Same thing. People go, "Oh, good news." He says, "I don't know if it's good news or bad news. It just is news." His son learns how to ride the horse, playing around on the horse, falls off, breaks his leg. People go, "Oh, that's really bad news. Your son broke his leg." Again, he says, "I don't know if it's good news or bad news. It just is news." The next day, the emperor's guards come into town and take all the able-bodied men to go to war. His son's got a broken leg, so they leave him behind. So you don't know. I mean, you don't know when things are good news or bad news. So as a group, we have to always stay optimistic. I mean, maybe there's a reason why the word isn't getting out so fast. Maybe there's some reason that you can't really justify any of these things, and so you just say, our goal is to stay optimistic. Our goal is to keep fighting forward and keep making sure that what we're doing, we continue to do, and don't let these setbacks or seeming setbacks, because they may not be setbacks. Don't let them stop you. Don't let them get you down, and just keep moving forward. Every day, just keep moving forward. And Justin, you're a great example of that. Every day you just get up and you just keep plugging at it, and you inspire other people. And that's, I give you a lot of credit for doing it, and I'm glad to be part of this show, because that's what we do. We just, hopefully we keep people moving forward and keep people informed and inspired about this plant, because this could be the difference maker, I hope.
Absolutely, brother. And I appreciate your optimism. And I know I consider myself a pretty optimistic person, and you're right there with me. I remember, we were talking about something, who knows, 50 episodes ago, and you were like, I was getting feisty about, same kind of stuff, marketing getting shut down, bank accounts shut down, city, trying to shut us down. You just can't believe the stuff we have to go through. And it is what it is. We got a big enough why, and that's okay. But you were like, just look how far we've come in the last 10 years or whatever. I remember you said that. And I was like, yeah, that's true, man. And at the end of the day too, I mean, I just know how much it could help so many people. And I know how scary it was when my son had his diagnosis around 3, I mean, it's like, and it's not just the CBD oil or the hemp or the cannabis. Look, it is an amazing plant all by itself. I mean, and it, you can rub it on inflammation or pain, and the pain goes away, or you have a headache and it can take your headache away. Or I just ran a half marathon on Sunday with my wife, and my feet, my dogs were barking. Let me tell you, it rained, my socks got wet, so I'm running on wet socks, and my hips were like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's the longest I've ever run in my life. And let's not kid ourselves, I did not run the whole time. But anyways, there was some yogging, as Anchorman Ron Burgundy would say. I think it's a silent, soft J. Anyways, I just knew when I got home, I forgot to take CBD right before we took off on the race. My wife's like, did you take some CBD? I'm like, oh my gosh. It was so early. We had to start so early. I wasn't thinking. And so, but when I got home, I knew there's like this comfort, like I know. And we just gobbled up some, I think 1600 milligram, whatever we had handy, and just gobbled it up, man, for the next 2 days. I probably took 200 or 300 milligrams over the 2 days, and some lingual oil. And then I had the roll on, man. I was just taking a bath in that thing, all over my feet and legs and hips and back and everywhere that it hurt. I run on the treadmill, and when I was training was on the treadmill, but obviously the marathon was on concrete. I'm like, whoa, I don't know how you folks do it, running on concrete. God bless you. I used to do it when I was a younger man, but I'll stick to my treadmill or a track or a dirt trail or anything, sand, anything but concrete. But anyways, it's such an amazing plant. Just if that's all that it did. But the main thing that I was getting at is that, and as we've done our Heal the World summits and take control of your health, is that it's a Pandora's box for so many people that because we're just if you just listen to the news or social media or what the mass media, the masses want you to do, you have an issue, you go to the doctor, you say, hey doctor, my foot hurts, what do you think? And then what's the doctor going to do? We all know, right? Or if you've got a complicated like aches and joints that have been lasting for months now, that you've got some like chronic pain, what's the doctor going to do, right? What are they going to do? Traditional medicine is going to get a prescription pad out and write you a prescription. Now look, there's great doctors out there, and there's homeopaths, and there's holistic doctors, and that's great. And there's and I encourage you, to find a doctor or a medical team or healthcare professionals that is in line with you. And the first thing that you have to do is find out what you are aligned with. What is your philosophy? And that's why we call it to take back control of your health, because people can take a little oil or rub on a little topical and it works. and there's no side effects. There's nothing damaging your liver or your stomach linings. And you're just like, you feel better. And you're like, that was great. And you're not doing anything negative. Now, look, when you're young, I was young. And when I was in baseball, we would just pop those. It was ibuprofen. And we didn't know. We were just dumb kids, right? And our arms hurt. So we just took them, And when you're young and healthy and your liver can process things and you certainly believe you're totally invincible, you get away with that. But as you get older and, kind of cross that usually that number 40 seems to be a pretty pivotal one, that you really need to start making better choices to keep your health up and make better long-term decisions. And that's why it was, it's by taking this pill, or not pill, I call it the red pill from Alice in Wonderland. But it's like, okay, so I took a plant and it solved my issue. Like, okay, what else can I do? Maybe I should eat some more salads, right? Or maybe I should check out my drinking water. Or maybe I really should go for a walk this morning. Or maybe I really should work on my morning routine. Or I really need to focus on my sleep. And a lot of people, once they've solved their pain, if the pain is, aches and pains, then they can actually sleep better. And once you can sleep better, get a good night's sleep, there's nothing more healing and homeostasis balancing than a good night's sleep. And again, we all know that this plant, it just happens to help with that too. So again, we'll just keep talking. We'll keep coming on. I know, like I said, we've taken a lot of tangents on this podcast, and to reach 1 billion people, we're not going to do it alone. And I hope, I hope by me being more vulnerable or maybe showing some of the not the happiest of moments on this journey, brings you closer to our journey. And we need your help. We need help. We need people to speak up. We need people to share the podcast. We need people to trust your instincts. Like if you hear this podcast and there's a loved one that you think needs to hear this, you need to copy this link and send it to them. Don't worry about what they think. Don't worry about what other people think. That's their perspective. That's their opinions. That's their projections on life. You do what you need to do. And that's just who I am. Look, I'm not telling you how to live your life, but that's just who I am. It's just like, I want to know that I've done everything I can to help people. And if I have access to information, that I believe is going to help them, the best approach, this is one of my life lessons things, is to ask somebody first if you can. It's such a cool thing to do. You get their buy-in. You say, hey, do you want to hear my opinion? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, absolutely. Even if they don't, they'll still say, yeah. But 1 times out of 10, they say no. And then you don't waste your time or energy, and they're not ready to hear that opinion. I think so many of us, we just share our opinions, just throwing it out there on people. And look, just get the buy-in. And when it comes to someone's health and things like that, sharing a podcast that might touch on cancer or might touch on rheumatoid arthritis or autism or some of the things that we've talked about today. That's what's great about a podcast. You can listen to it while you're driving or at the gym or walking or whatever you're doing. It's a real simple format to pass along. So you're a part of the journey now that you've heard this. We have opened Pandora's box for you. And we hope that this podcast has enlightened you on some of the tougher things that we go through. And we're willing to keep doing it because we don't want any more stories. I'm tired of it's. We don't need to lose one more person. And I've actually lost 2 in the last few weeks. Both were brain cancer. And that was our previous episode that was released today as well, Dave Woodward. And, we just need people to try the product and give it a good try. And that's the thing that I love most too, is like we were talking about with Gudrun and her cancer, was that they're doing blood work. And so when you take the CBD oil or the whole plant, not just this garbage that's out there, get something that's representing the whole plant. We obviously prefer for it to be whole plant and raw, but at the very least, get a whole plant product. And the best thing you can do is grow it in your backyard and eat it, throw it in your juice in the morning. But anyways, when you take the whole plant and you have the blood work, there's no denying it. You want to blow some doctors' minds? You want some proof, doc? I mean, we've had doctors that come back to us or come back to our clients and say, it had to be a miracle. And then I can't tell you how many times I've heard it's a miracle, or they say, we must have mixed up your blood work. We must have messed it up. And then they make them take it again. And then it's a miracle, or I can't explain it. And then the patient will tell the doctor, well, I started taking whole plant raw CBD oil, CBD oil. And that's one of the ways that the doctors are getting educated, by their patients, seeing the proof right in front of them. And some of them are still denying it, and some of them will never, ever, ever believe, even when they see it right in front of them. And that's okay, because we can't change their minds. But there are millions of doctors out there and healthcare professionals and a system that we can change. So again, thank you for swinging by the Miracle Plant Podcast. Any final remarks before we wrap up, Dave? Dan? Sorry, I was thinking about Dave.
No, Justin, I'm happy to be part of what we're doing, and I, like I said, I appreciate your commitment to this, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it as a community. We're gonna get this across the finish line. It may not be tomorrow, but we are committed, and it's gonna happen.
Well, we got till 2025 and 12/31 at the stroke of midnight in Times Square, so we've got some time. And we're going to do our darndest to hit that number. And we are working with the right people in the marketing, digital marketing geniuses like Russell and the Napoleon Hill Foundation and Daryl Eves, who was instrumental in getting The Chosen out there to reach 1 billion views. So we are teamed up with the right people. Trust me, I have done everything I possibly can, racked my brains to figure out how I can get that number and shift and raise consciousness about this miracle plant. And it's not just a plant, it's about eating healthy. I've been talking with Chris Beat Cancer to get him on the podcast. He's got an amazing thing with juicing, and really aligned with him as well. So again, thank you for coming by and listening to the podcast and sharing your time with us. Hopefully this resonated with you. If it did, please rate it or share it. And I want to thank Dan for all the hard work that he's done. I want to wish everyone happy holidays and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and everything else, and just spending time with friends and family and loved ones. It is that one time of the year where, especially here in America, where we exhale and we hang out with each other, and we go skiing or do whatever it is that we do. So I encourage you to really squeeze those loved ones a little extra tight this holiday. And thanks for swinging by the Miracle Plant Podcast. And at the end of every podcast, we say heal the world, because that is the mission here, to heal the world and educate the world. So on the count of 3, let's say heal the world. And if you're listening at home, say it with us. Those vibrations get out there further than you can even imagine. So on the count of 3, let's say heal the world. 1, 2, 3. Heal the world! All right, thanks for coming by the Miracle Plant Podcast. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care and be a blessing.
Thanks for listening to today's show. To check out more great cannabis podcasts, go to PodConx.com. Here's a preview of one of our other shows.
Hi, I'm Gary, and I invite you to discover the Cannabis Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast focused on a Canadian's cannabis culture. I would be the Canadian, and my cannabis passion and culture has been building for 5 decades. I share that passion for this wonderful plant in every episode, through conversations with cannabis advocates and enthusiasts, stories about the ever-changing legal environment, and some hands-on testing of product in a segment I call Cultivar Corner. The Cannabis Podcast, a Canadian's cannabis culture, one toke at a time.